and welcome to AV's Cyber Active Cybersecurity channel. My name is Avinash. I've been a cybersecurity professional for more than 10 years now. We are in session 4 of CISSP Q&A to help you pass your CISSP exam. Let's get started. First question of the day, which type of control provides extended options to existing controls and is used in addition or in place of another control? So just by looking at the question, you should already know that it's asking something from the risk management domain. So that's basically how you manage or apply the risk management concepts. Okay. I see some keywords in this question already, even before I look at the answers. So I see extended options to existing controls, and there's another one that says used in addition to. Okay. You can pause the video when you see the answers, go through the options, and then resume the video. We'll go from there. Okay, let's look at options. Option number A, recovery control. Option number B, corrective control. Option C, deterrent control. And option D, compensation control. Let's go through them one by one, shall we? Option A, recovery control. So what is a recovery control? So recovery control is something that, attempts to repair or restore some resources or functions or capabilities after some security violation has happened. So that's basically, to sum it up, that's a recovery. You try to recover from already that is something has been damaged. Corrective control. So does this apply to this context of this question? The question is asking mostly about some extended option of an existing control. So what's corrective? Corrective is something, you can say something that's automated, or you can say a corrective control is something that, modifies the environment to return the system to a normal state and after an, unwanted or an unauthorized activity or an incident has happened. For example, if there was an incident that has happened in your environment and you took some measures to have it corrected, that's corrective control. But does that apply in the question, in the context of this question? No, I don't think so. Let's move ahead to the next one. That is option D, deterrent control. Um, Deterrent control. What's deterrent? So it comes from the word deter. Deter mean it's something that you want somebody to move away from. Okay. Now the question says it's an extended option of an existing control. And so deterrent control wouldn't really apply to it because you're not trying to move away from something. You actually want to apply a different type of control on top of an existing control, right? Option D, compensation control. This one actually fits right in because if you see, question says extended option in place of an existing control. If you just go by the grammar of it, so you can already tell that it's in compensatory control is what it's looking for, but you would have to understand why a compensatory control is the correct answer here. So if I was to tell you a definition, a compensatory control is something that is deployed to provide various options in place of an existing control uh, that acts as an enforcement to support your security policies. So if your primary control, fails, there is already an existing control, which is you're compensating with the other one. So if I was to give you an example, say for example, you have an appliance and it's in active passive mode. Now, why would you put a device in active passive mode? You can just use both the devices at the same time, right? But no, here's the thing. If one of your devices fail, the passive device can just take over it, can compensate for it. If I was to explain it to the firewall people, so that would be, you're looking at a fire failover option in the event that a primary or your primary control fails. So you would find most of the devices like it wouldn't really apply to IPS, but it would certainly apply to load balancers, IDS appliances, and firewall devices. So if your primary appliance, say for example, if you have a power outage or the power supply and it fails, you have your compensatory control to compensate so that until your primary device is back up again. So in this case, our correct answer is option D, compensation control. All right, hope that helps. Let's move to our next question. Second question, you're updating the data policy for your company and adding responsibilities for various data roles. Which of the following roles is ultimately responsible for due diligence in protecting the company's data? Okay, you can pause the video, go through the options, think over it, choose your favorite one, and then resume the video. All right. Now let's go through the answers one by one. Option one, the user. So who's the user? And does it apply to the context of this question? So you're updating the data policy of your company. Okay, you're rereading the question once again. We'll do it slow. Uh, you're updating the data policy of your company and adding responsibilities for various roles. Okay, which of the following roles is ultimately responsible for due diligence? So you have to know what due diligence is. So there's due diligence and there's due care. Due diligence comes first. It's making sure that the controls are there. Now, due care is actually doing the work, making sure that the work is actually done. Hope that makes sense. So who's the user? The user is just a regular user, simply just using the data, doing his or her day in and day out work, punching out on time, and that's it. Nothing more than that. But does that apply to the question? It says you're updating data policy of your company and adding responsibilities, right? It's quite high level. Okay. Option B, the data owner. That sounds more like it. Now, who's a data owner, you ask? So, data owner is somebody or is a person or a role, uh, somebody high at the top who has the final corporate responsibility for, protection and storage of the data. So, you know, it's in the name that the person is the data owner who owns the data. Not necessarily someone who created the data, but someone who is ultimately responsible for the data. Data custodian. No. Why no? Because data custodian, you wouldn't hear these terms a lot. You may or may not hear in your environment, depending on the role or the role you are or the kind of exposure that you have in your environment. But again, data custodian is somebody who's responsible for, maintenance and to upkeep or do the daily maintenance of the task that is required to protect the data. I'll give you an example. Suppose you go to a police station, right? And you're a cop. There are evidences that are kept in a different cell. That's, only authorized personnel can go in there. Now, when you go in there and you would want to, check into some evidences for crime that has been committed, you can't just go ahead and look into the tamper the data or tamper those evidences. You would have to punch in, as in you would have to make an entry, and there would be a person, or it can be an actual person, or most probably it is an actual person. That person would be called a data custodian. That person is taking care, making sure that all the evidences are recorded, checked for any expiry, for making sure that nobody's tampering with the data, making logs, who has, making that the chain of custody, as in who has touched the data, when it was touched, who was investigated, and so on and so forth. I think now you get that picture. And at last, data controller. Nope. This also would not be the answer because data control is pretty simple to understand. Data control is somebody who controls. They're the people who decide what data should be processed and how it should be processed. Again, what data should be processed and how it should be processed. That's it, nothing more than that. So, in the context of this question, this is talking about who updates the policy way on the top of your company and adding responsibilities to various data roles. So the answer, it has to be the data owner because that somebody is somebody who is updating the data policies and adding responsibilities for various data roles. So the answer is B, data owner. All right, last question of the day, question number three. An access control model assigns accesses based on a user's need to know. All right, here's the keyword need to know. Combined with organizational policies. Which of the following fits this description? So one of them fits description. You could choose to pause the video, go through the options, choose your favorite one, and resume the video. All right. All right. Let's go through the options now. Option A, discretionary access control. Discretionary. What's discretionary? So, uh, if you are the owner of the data, if you are the owner of the pencil that you're holding, or the mouse that you're holding, or the cell phone that you're holding, it's in your discretion to share the data or not. So that's discretionary. Does that apply to the context of the question? It's saying access control based on need to know. So you'd have to know what is need to know, right? Need to know is something that is only disclosed to the person only when you have the need to know it, right? If you're not supposed to know it, you shouldn't even be accessing the data. Okay. Option B, mandatory access control. That fits quite right in. Mandatory access control is something that that assigns accesses based on the user's need to know in an organization of a policy. No, that would be given only in control the, where only data is given which you're supposed to know, and that's it. You cannot read anything above that, or you cannot read or even write data anything below your level. So that's mandatory access control. But let's look at the other options to check and see if there are any better ones. Attribute-based controls, no, not really, because attributes-based control is basically looking for, what's an attribute base? So if there's a data, it's got some attributes. Maybe it's a PII information. It's got, health information protected by HIPAA, HIPPA, and then and it's got date of birth and it's got some more information on it. So these are the attributes. But that does that apply to the context of the question? It's saying access control assigned access based on need to know. Not really. Attributes, need to know, it doesn't quite go together. Risk-based controls, absolutely not, at least not in this question. So our correct answer is going to be the mandatory access control. All right, so these are the three questions for today. Let me know if you would like to see some more topics covered, and hope you do great in your exams. All right, all the best.